everybody. Welcome to the Technology Evangelist podcast. I'm Dr. John Fluke, Technology Evangelist. And today we're going to talk about AI and where AI is going in radiography and in the profession. It's a great guy to talk to about this. He's one of my best friends in the whole world. Mike Buckner. He is the Executive Vice President of Revenue at Pearl, which I know probably everybody watching this has heard of, and we're just going to see where this goes. Mike, thank you so much for being here.
This is exciting, John. I appreciate you having me on with all the time that we get to spend together, I was really excited about doing this podcast with you. So I appreciate the invite.
Yeah, cool. All right, so I always start off with the origin stories. Everybody knows. So Mike, you can go back as far as you want. Mine goes back to when I was 3. So just tell everybody how you got to the point that you are now in dentistry.
Sure. Dentistry, that's so funny because I never would have, it's not something that I had aspired to, like, oh, I want to work in the dental industry or even
Right.
be a dentist. Um, I was fortunate enough to accept a position at Solution Reach early on. And at the time, I had been working in uh, real estate investment companies and franchise growth, um, and working partnerships there. And so when I came over to Solution Reach to lead business development in the dental space,
Yeah.
I thought, man, okay, I'm kind of new to the technology side
Right.
of things, but then also dentistry. I mean,
It's a weird
what am I
field.
doing in dentistry? So it was interesting because I learned quickly that I had a lot to learn. So, working with partners and working with, just really getting to know the dental space and the dental industry and the lingo. I would go to these dental conferences, and rather than, I wasn't a sales rep, so I wasn't spending time in the booth, but I would
Right.
spend a lot of time in courses, and I'd just be taking notes as like a student 101, like learning what does a periapical radiolucency mean? What
Right.
does what does all the lingo that I had no idea. So that was really kind of my education, was going to these dental seminars, listening to anything from practice management to clinical, so that I could speak the language and understand, first of all, understand the dental industry, but then second of all, really getting familiar with the pain points and what practices struggle with. And something that I quickly realized is that here you have a very unique business in that you've got a clinician who has spent the majority of their time in educating, and their
Right.
in their experience in college was just learning dentistry. Well, now you give them a whole new challenge of, not only are you going to be a dentist, but you're going to run a business.
Yeah.
And there's only so many ways that you can grow a dental practice, and you can grow profits and revenue. And because you're in a building, you've got X number of operatories and X number of procedures and patients you're going to visit. It soon was evident that it all came down to the efficiency in a practice. And what are the things that you can do to lean on technologies in order to streamline and to increase efficiency, cut down on overhead, do things smarter so that you've
Hmm.
got your practice working
Yeah.
smarter and not harder. That for me was like, I got addicted to it. And so I like to say I'm a dental tech junkie because I love to think through and work with companies that are providing solutions to really help practices do more with less. So I was at Solution Reach for a number of years. I
Right.
spent some time over at Dental Intelligence. That
Hmm.
was really helpful for me just to learn the back end, the KPIs, the business side of dentistry.
Yeah,
And
that's a huge benefit in the
absolutely.
field of dental intelligence. I'll tell you about it right now. I went with Dental Intel because Mike was there, and I mean, the office is still using it to this day. But I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, yeah, it was great for me just to learn that side
Yeah.
and the numbers side of
Hmm.
dentistry. I was there for a while, and then I went over to Weave, and I led the business development in the dental space over there for a number of years, right up until about their IPO. Really, my focus has been working with partners and key opinion leaders, partnerships, and just growth strategies in these various companies.
How long have we known each other? Do you have any idea?
Oh
Because I
God.
don't, seriously.
Honestly, it probably goes back to, I'm gonna guess 2013, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I think at least that.
Yeah.
So,
In fact, I will say one of
yeah,
my most fondest memories, I think, of just overall, just being in the dental space here, my career in dentistry has been Vancouver. Our time
yeah.
in Vancouver when
Oh my
you were
gosh.
speaking in the morning and
Yeah.
we were going to go have lunch. You were
Hmm.
speaking in the morning, we were going to break away, go have lunch, and then you were going to speak in the afternoon. And I
Yeah.
met you in your classroom and I said, John, I've been watching these planes, these seaplanes come in and land right there in the bay by that conference center. And I said,
Mhm.
tell you what, let's go grab a sack lunch. Let's go hop on a seaplane and let's tour Vancouver before your next course. And you were like, sure, let's do it. I
Yeah.
thought it was a stretch, but hey, we made it and you got back in time. You flew around Vancouver, came back in time, and you spoke in that second half of the day.
You know what's really funny about that, Mike, is it was so long ago that you couldn't get good video off of your phone. And I was still carrying a little Canon pocket digital camera around with me then, and it would shoot video. And I remember we were flying, and I got that camera out, and I was taking a movie. I was taking video of us like flying around downtown Vancouver. And when I got back, the first thing I did was I pulled the card out of the camera and I copied the files over to my computer and I started the course with like 3 minutes of video. And I said, so what did you guys do for lunch today?
That
Because that
was
was one
great,
of the
man.
coolest things ever. That was so much fun.
Oh yeah.
Just
Yeah.
living on the edge. So
So yeah,
yeah.
after we've had their IPO, I stepped away. I ended up just doing some consulting with a number of companies because I wasn't sure if I was, if I wanted to join another startup just because
Right.
it's a grind. It takes a lot out of
Oh,
you.
yep.
The
I
travel
totally
is
get that.
crazy and so I was doing some consulting and and then I had a couple companies reach out and I started to learn about what AI was doing in the dental
Mhm.
space. And
Yeah.
I met Ophir, our CEO and one of the founders of Pearl, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is a technology that is
Mhm.
going to change dentistry and
Yeah.
solve so many problems. So I had to be a part of it. I joined in at the end of 21 and have been there since. And it's been awesome to see the growth and to see the adoption of such a new technology. I mean, so new and so huge that it said, AI is considered the fourth industrial revolution. So to be
Yeah, I
part of
totally
that
believe
has
that.
been
Yeah.
so exciting.
You know, two things about Pearl that are very intrinsic to my career. The first one was that the first the first time I saw AI, I remember I had a meeting, a private meeting with two guys at the Chicago Midwinter. I think it was 2015.
Hmm.
And these guys said, we're using artificial intelligence on x-rays. And I was like, at that point in time, I remember the big deal to me was that I could go into the photos on my phone and I could type in cat. And, it would pull up every picture of a cat on my phone. And so I was like, when they invited me to this meeting, I was like, AI on x-rays. I was like, what's it just gonna like be able to tell you like, here's all your bite wings or here's all your PAs? And I was like, we kind of have that already. I'm not sure. And then they showed it to me and I was like, oh my gosh. And without trying to make the story long, it was very kludgy. You had to take an x-ray, then you had to export the x-ray out of your practice management system, in my case, EagleSoft. And then you had to upload the x-ray to their system and then tell it it's a bite wing and tell it to analyze. But it was like incredibly accurate. And I got hooked on it really fast. And it was a startup. And I worked with them for about 3 or 4 months, evaluating and looking at things and making recommendations. And then all of a sudden, one day, I got this phone call from one of the guys, and he was like, yeah, I think it was a Wednesday. And he was like, I just want to tell you that on Friday, we're not going to be, it won't be available. And I said, okay, I get that. You're doing some upgrades. When's it coming back? And he's like, no, 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 no. It's not coming back. We're out of money. We're going to have to
Mm.
shut down. And even though it was a kludge, even though I had to export and import and do all this stuff, I was like, what do you mean it's not coming back? And then all of a sudden, one day I get an email from you, and you're like, hey, I'm with Pearl. And, I knew the name. But anyway, you were like, I'm working with Pearl. And I was like, oh, thank God somebody I know is in AI again. And so that's the first great Pearl story because I was on Pearl from like the minute you got there. The second thing was, and it's funny how these little serendipitous things happen in your life, but one of your coworkers, Erica,
Mhm.
she was coming to Kansas City, and this was in January of 23. And she reached out to me. She said, hey, you want to grab a coffee while I'm in town? I'm doing some stuff with distributors and I don't have a lot of free time, but I'd love to get together and just, spend an hour hanging out. And I was like, yeah, sure. So I met her at a Starbucks and we sat down, and like the first thing out of her mouth was like, have you seen this chat GPT? And I was like, what? Because I think this was either the morning of or the day after they announced it. And she pops her laptop open and she showed me, a couple of things with it. And I went home and created an account. And I just remember I actually told her, I was like, you guys are in the perfect place right now because February 2023, Chat GPT gets let loose on the world, and you couldn't turn on a television, you couldn't listen to the radio, you couldn't go on the web, on a news site, on any video without seeing artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
And and it's so funny because it's like normally would I remember that meeting? No, probably I'd like, yeah, Eric and I got together sometime. But I tell you, it's February 23 because
Wow.
that was the day the earth shifted.
Yeah.
And it's just gone bonkers, and Pearl has gone bonkers with it
Yeah.
along those lines. So let's talk a little bit about this. So the whole idea of radiographic analysis, I think people, if you've never seen it before, and I think probably when you're a younger doc and you're still kind of getting exposure and exposure X-rays, um, you're getting exposure and you're kind of finding your sea legs in the profession, you probably appreciate, yeah, I could probably use a little help. But I think after you've been doing it for a while, I think a lot of doctors are like, what do I need that for? I got these two things,
Yeah.
right here in my head. I've got all the intelligence I need. So how does what you do come into that equation?
Yeah. So I'd like to probably where I had my biggest aha moment here was a few months. It was almost a year. It was short of a year since I had joined Pearl. And
Mhm.
so I knew what we were doing was awesome. It
Right.
was amazing,
Agreed.
great technology.
Yep.
But I knew that there were still a number of clinicians that I would speak to that would say, why would I need something like this? Like
Yep.
I've been reading X-rays, for years, haven't had a
Yep.
problem. I don't miss things. And
Which
uh,
was exactly what I thought when I started.
yeah, and it's like, why would we need something like this? And then October of 22 was my big aha moment. And I know I've shared this story with you, and I won't go into too much detail, but that's basically the month when we learned that my wife had told me that she felt a lump in her breast. We went in, we got a mammogram, and that when the results from the mammogram came back and they said, you know what, don't worry, it's not typical to what we see with breast cancer.
Right.
We'll just for peace of mind, let's do an ultrasound. We did the ultrasound and it was the same thing. You know what? It's not typical to what we see with breast cancer. Carly, you're 38 years old. You're young. We see this a lot. It could be a cyst. It could be, fatty tissue, whatever they call it.
Yeah.
And they said, let's keep an eye on it. Let's watch it. And if you come back next year, we'll be able to see if it's changed or whatever.
Right.
Um, and it wasn't sitting right with me. And I'm thinking to myself, what's the difference in the black and white and gray images that you look at on a mammogram and the black and white and gray images that you look at on an ultrasound. And so they
Mm-hmm.
said, well, you can do the biopsy. You've already done these two tests. The biopsy will have
Yeah.
to be out of pocket. I just want to let you
Right.
know. And I'm like, of course, we'll do the biopsy. And then the results
Yep.
came back, and it was stage 2 invasive ductal carcinoma. And that's where I had my aha moment, John, because I'm thinking to myself, of course, like I there's so much that's left up to human interpretation. And I know that sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
while looking at those images, we don't we're afraid of over-diagnosing. We're afraid of,
Yep.
so if something is not absolute and it's like, oh, it could be, we tend to kind of, sometimes it's like, we'll keep an eye on it and we'll watch it and let's
Mm-hmm.
see if this changes at all.
Right.
Um, and that's really where I had my aha moment, because there is the human eyes. I mean, it can only see so much. And here's the thing is,
Yep.
I don't know if that radiologist that day, I don't know if they were having a bad day. I don't know if they looked
Yep.
at 100 images beforehand. But
Yeah.
what I do know is there is something that they talk about in radiology, where your eyes reach a point of optical fatigue after you've been
Mm-hmm.
looking at X-rays. And they say that after about 18 to 20 X-rays, if you've been looking at X-ray after
Yep.
X-ray after X-ray, after about 18 to 20, they recommend
Yeah.
that you stand up, you look outside, you change your depth perception,
Yep.
um, and kind of refresh and come back to it, because your eyes, get tired and sometimes
Yeah.
need to blend together. So that's really where AI comes into play, is because now it's not taking just what the eye can see. Because here's the problem too. If you're looking at a monitor and you have a brand new monitor, you're looking at your x-rays, regardless of your imaging software that you use on a brand new monitor versus a
Right.
monitor that you've had in your practice for years, there's even a difference there. I
Yep.
talked to one of our close friends who says, yeah, I realized that I had been looking at x-rays on this monitor. And then when I go to our new monitor, I'm like, oh my gosh, I see something that I didn't see on this monitor. So the AI is taking the raw data, it's taking the pixels and really pulling the raw data in and recognizing the patterns of what is found, where are the anomalies, where's the differentiation in the shades or the tones of gray, so
Yeah.
that it can start to pick up on those early stage caries. It can start to pick up on those things that otherwise we would wait until our eyes are seeing a very clear distinction of, okay,
Yep.
now I can see it, and that's exactly what's going on.
You
So,
know, any doctor that doesn't say this either hasn't been practicing or isn't telling you the truth. I've had a lot. I mean, I've been at this for a while, but I've had a lot of situations where you take bite wings and then the next year they come back and you take bite wings and there is like an area that's large and you're like, whoa, well, that sure showed up quick. And
yeah,
then, of course, you go back and look at the bite wing from a year ago and you say, if I'd have known that day that this was going to do this, yeah, I can see that now.
yeah,
And, when you think about like an 8-bit image, little techie, but an 8-bit image is 256 shades of gray. And that's like a really low quality sensor. Human eyes in tests see between 40 and about 105 shades of gray. So even a bad sensor gives you twice as much grayscale as you can see.
yeah,
And as you go up in quality with sensors, um, you you don't, your eyes don't change. The sensors get better and the images get better, but your eyes don't notice a difference.
yeah,
And yeah, the whole pixel thing of it looks at everything. It sees all. A lot of people don't know either, Mike, that literally the imaging software that you use in any practice management system is actually dumbed down to make it better for the human eye because there's too much info in there for you to process. And I want to say that, like, I think it's a 12-bit sensor image sees like 65,000 shades of gray.
Hmm.
And I see 105 if I'm, if I'm at the far end of the
Yeah.
bell-shaped curve.
Yeah.
And it sees things that you don't see. I mean, I love how what Pearl does now with endo is amazing, because periapical radiolucencies, it actually shows you this is the actual area of the radiolucency. And one of the things a lot of doctors don't know is that they've done studies with cadaver mandibles, and they've taken, I don't know if you know what a number 8 round burr is, but every doctor watching this will know what a number 8 round burr is. And they've taken a number 8 round burr and just drilled into a cadaver mandible and then taken x-rays. And what they found is they have to be about between 50% and 75% through the whole jaw before you actually can discern a periapical radiolucency.
Wow.
And, when you've got something like Pearl and you take it, and I'm like, if I close one eye and squint just right, yeah, I mean, maybe there's something. And then I pop Pearl up and it goes, it draws that nice blue shape. I'm like, oh yeah. Yeah, now I
Yeah.
see it. It's
Well, and it's important to note too, and this is where I want to be very clear that the AI, the AI is not meant to be the replacement or the end all be all or the final consensus. It's not replacing the dentist, because
right.
I love the fact that you brought up the example of your phone, right? And how you type in cat and it pulls up all the pictures of your cats.
Yep.
I actually, I've done this before. We have two dogs at home. So there's a lot of pictures of dogs. And
Yeah. I
when
know
I
how
did,
that goes.
yeah, I did this exercise. I typed in dog and it pulls up all the pictures of dogs, but one of the pictures in there is a cow. And I kind of think like, okay, AI must not be that accurate. But the
Right.
very next picture alongside of it is actually a picture, and I should show this to you, but it's actually a picture of a cow that honestly looks almost like my dog, because the head is the same angle, has
Right.
the same color of fur, it
Right.
has the same white spots on its nose, and it was a cow, picture of a cow that we took when we were over in Switzerland. And I'm looking at that now and I'm thinking, okay, I can see actually how the AI would have picked
Mhm.
this up and
Yep.
tried to recognize it as a dog.
Sure.
But the thing is, I know better, right? I know
Yeah.
better. I'm not going to say, well, it says it's a dog, so it must be a dog. No,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can see it and differentiate between it. Now, the job of going in and pulling all of the pictures of dogs together on my phone within a split second,
Mhm.
it would have taken me hours to do that, to go through all the
Yeah.
pictures of dogs on my phone. So it did that job a lot quicker, but in the end, it's still not a replacement for me. But when we work together, when
Yep.
I'm working with the AI to say, okay, AI did a huge portion of that, I'm going to do the rest of it, and
Yep.
these are accurate, this is not. That's really how we should be working with AI, regardless of whether it's AI with X-rays or AI with ChatGPT. ChatGPT, I've put things in there before. Like I've put results in there. I have a group of friends. We watch the F1 races,
Okay.
and but we place kind of our wagers and our bets on it. But I also want to know before the race. If the race has already happened, I like to go to ChatGPT and say, "Okay, tell me the starting grid or the starting lineup,
Right.
before the race, but don't give me any results." And
Yeah.
sometimes it'll get it wrong. Sometimes the results that ChatGPT gives me
Right.
it'll be wrong or incorrect. And so it's not the end all be all, but it gets you like, it gets you like
Yeah.
95% of the way there, as long as you're using it with our knowledge base as well.
Yep. Because what I think is, I reached over and pulled up a dental instrument off of my desk here, but when I pick up an Explorer or I pick up a perio probe and I go in somebody's mouth, if the perio probe says 4 millimeters, is that, does the perio probe now tell me I need to do something?
Mm,
No, no.
yeah.
All it does, that and the Explorer, when something is sticky, you feel something and it's kind of sticky and you're like, okay, is that caries or is it big enough? Could I remineralize it? Instruments are data collection devices. When
Mm,
you do full mouth perio probing, all those numbers don't mean diddly do unless there's a human being on the other end of it looking at them.
yeah.
And if you just, oh, it's 4 millimeter, well, we need to do surgery. I mean, that's crazy. Nobody would do that. And it's the same way with this. What AI provides you is data. I love the fact that Pearl's radiographic program is called Second Opinion,
Yeah.
because I really think whoever thought of that, that's genius, because it doesn't say, I'd prep this, but it does say, hey, did you look real close at that?
Yeah.
And before I had AI, in fact, even now that we're using it all the time, um, we've got 4 doctors in the office. And sometimes you look at something and I'm like, okay, Pearl sees something. I think I see something. Hey, can you look at this? Just look at 13. Look at number 13 and tell me if you see anything on there.
Yeah.
It's a second opinion. It's not telling you what to do, any
Right.
more than
Right.
a perio probe is. And you've got to factor so many things in. I mean, as far as decay, I think is interesting because in dentistry, some patients don't get decay.
Mm,
Love to know why. Love to be able to duplicate that. But some people, every time I see them, I'm like, oh no, they're going to have a problem. And if I see something or if Pearl picks up something, I got to factor that in. Does the patient break down routinely? Do they break down fast? Do they break down slow? Machine doesn't know any of that. All it knows is there's less density in this spot. And I want you to make sure that you're aware of that. But it's all about the human mind as far as, what the decisions are. And I thought you did a great job of bringing that up because, one of the things that people say to me sometimes is, I don't want a machine telling me what to do. And I'm like, I don't either, but
mm,
I'm a data freak.
yeah.
And if there's a better way, to get more data, then
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all in because you don't see everything.
Well,
And, hey,
and to your point of like second opinion,
mhm,
that's it's really important because I think it's just less than 50%. I think it's like 40 to 45% of dentists in the US
mhm,
are the only dentists in the practice. And so
right.
there's, I mean, it happens a lot. You take an x-ray and nobody wants to sell dentistry. We don't want to oversell or to appear like we're trying to cram
Right.
procedures down a patient's throat. But there
Yeah.
are times when you're looking at an image, you're looking at an x-ray and you're like, gosh, could it be? Is it? I mean, it
Mhm.
kind of looks like it, but I'm on the fence there.
Yeah.
And so if you're the only dentist in the practice and sometimes yeah you can send an x-ray out to somebody else and say, hey, can you take a look at this, tell me your
Yeah.
thoughts, but that's where right there in the moment to have that second opinion there, okay,
Mhm.
to provide just a little bit more clarity as to what you're
Yeah.
looking at. Now the other thing that I wanted to talk about is let's talk about the patient's perspective now, right?
Mhm.
Because for myself, what happened with me and my wife, right, with her breast cancer, what happened with us, we actually know 2 other people that had the same thing happen, where almost
Wow.
play by
Wow.
play, John. It was almost play by play of you know what, don't worry about it. Let's try this test. Don't worry
Yeah.
about it now. You can do a biopsy, and the results came back as cancerous. And so for myself, now that I know that there is a technology out there specifically with mammography to help increase to use AI in mammography there,
Yeah.
now that there's that technology and I know it's available, I have 2 daughters. And when they get to the
Mhm.
point where they're going to need, to mammograms for any reason,
Yeah.
I will never allow them to go anywhere that is not backed by AI because the technology and where it's at today just increases and elevates that standard of care. And so we're seeing that now with patients, dental patients across the country, that they know that this technology is available. Maybe they've been burned before, similar to how I have. So when
Yep.
you're in the practice and you see and you hear from your dentist, hey, we use state-of-the-art FDA cleared AI technology to
Right.
ensure that we're picking everything up. Now the patient's perspective on what they're looking at when we're pointing things out on the x-ray, part of case acceptance comes down to trust in the procedure and understanding
Yep.
what's going on and why they need to proceed with something. So it definitely has a huge impact on educating the patient and helping them understand it and gain and grow the trust that they have in what's going on.
Well, and sharing the information is so important. I don't know if you know this, Mike. I was a psych major in undergrad. I've got a
Hmm.
bachelor's in psych. Not that really, I'd like to
That
say that.
explains so much.
Now, it just really qualifies me if somebody says something, I say, and how do you feel about that? Um, but one of the things I remember is 85% of what we learn about our environment comes through our eyes, and about 10% of it comes through our ears.
Mm.
And I've always been a big one on visual communication. I mean, I bought my first intraoral camera in the 90s. It was 15,500 bucks for a camera. Yeah. And I bought it though because I could show people the problem. And then, digital x-ray comes along and now I can, rather than hold up, a number 2 film up to the, light in the ceiling and say, see that little, now I could show it to them on a screen. And then when you combine that with the ability to then show the bite wing with the AI overlaid on it, and I think it's super cool. I love the way your system works where you can like turn the tooth parts off and on,
Mhm.
because I don't need to really see where the enamel and the dentin and the pulp are usually. But the patients are fascinated with that stuff,
Yeah.
and I think every doctor's had people. One case always steps out in my mind. I had a young girl in the office. I think she was 16, new patient, and I looked in her mouth and she had like 12 areas of decay.
Mm.
So I told her mom, and her mom was like, well, we've been seeing, we just moved to the area and we've been seeing, Dr. Jones since she was born, and he didn't see any cavities. And I said, well, I'm more than happy to show you the x-rays. And she didn't want to see them. They left, called to have their x-rays transferred to another office. And so I called and I actually got a hold of the dad. And he said, basically, yeah, Dr. Jones says she doesn't have any cavities. We know she doesn't have any cavities. And I said, well, look, come into the office. I will sit you down. I will show you exactly what I see. He didn't take that option. This was before Pearl. But
Mm.
now, if I could sit down and go, look, I even actually, I transferred the image to my phone, I remember, and I would like go to meetings and show them to friends, like, how many areas of decay do you see on this? And they'd be like, 1, 2, 3, 4. I was like, okay, I'm not blind. I'm not, overly, you know, diagnosing. But anyway, just the ability to put that up on the patient's screen
Yeah.
and really let them see, they don't have any problems or they do
Yeah.
have. It just helps people to understand, and better informed people make better decisions. I mean, better
Well,
informed patients make better decisions, better informed doctors make better.
yes. But at that same time, I kind of want to ask this question, like,
Yeah,
how often do you think how often does this happen when, a patient comes in and we know it's one of those patients that is very reluctant, if it's
yeah,
not hurting, they don't want to take care
yep,
of it. And we look at the x-ray and we see everything that's going on, but we know that if we tell them or go through everything that's going on, they're going to feel
yep,
overwhelmed. They're going to feel like we're selling them dentistry.
yep,
So we just pick maybe the one or two things that are severe or that really need to be
hmm,
taken care of. And
right,
then those are the things that we talk to them about, right? And
yep,
sometimes we may say, you know what, I'm just going to mention these things. We'll tell them we're going to watch these areas here.
yeah,
But I think that this is where when you put that data, the information up on the x-ray, and you put it in front of them. You don't, no longer do we have to kind of pick and choose, but now you present them with the data with no emotions. You
yeah,
put the data up in front of them,
yep,
explain what's going on, but now, you know, I- the patient is able to just make the decision on what they want to proceed with. And so even areas now, and I don't know if this is a plug with, and I don't mean it to be, but like with Curodont, we're seeing
Yeah.
amazing success stories with Curodont because, for example, now with all the incipient lesions,
Hmm.
where before it was like, yeah, we're going to watch these areas. Well, now what the patients are seeing is they're seeing a little like yellow on the
Yeah.
x-ray. It kind of highlights that in yellow saying, here's an incipient lesion.
Yeah.
Whereas the
Only in
green
enamel
or the
or
red
yellow.
are the
Yeah.
ones that, we need to
Right.
restore or we need to fill. But these other ones that we might be watching before, we're now seeing the patient say, okay, well, hold on. These three over here that are yellow, I know you want to watch them. I don't want
Hmm.
to get worse. What can we do about that now?
Yeah.
Now what we're seeing is, obviously they've got you can remineralize, you can use Curodont,
Yep.
but after using Curodont, what we're seeing is that the AI is no longer picking up the incipient lesions. It's completely remineralized it and restored it. And so it's kind of changing how that conversation goes between the doctor and the patient when they're looking at everything together and making that decision together.
Yeah. And I definitely see that. I mean, I think Curodont's got a great future. I really do. I think it's a great product. Um, it's almost kind of like a time machine in a way, where you're like, we can make this, we can put this back where it was before it ever broke down, which is amazing. But yeah, once again, telling people, okay, we've got this technology now that we can do where we don't have to cut a hole in your tooth. We can now go in and we can, put this in, it'll fill in that area, keep it from getting worse. And there's a lot of people that take advantage of things like that. I mean, it's like you said, there's a lot of people like, I don't want it to get worse. I don't want to, we call it monitor because I think watch is kind of a silly word, but, a patient's like, I don't want to monitor anything. Isn't there something we can do? And in that case, it's a great option. It's
Yeah.
interesting then that Pearl doesn't pick those up. I think that's really cool.
That's and honestly, that was kind of shocking too, because we thought that maybe it would be like a false positive or that maybe it
Yeah.
would show something, but to show
Yeah.
that what was picked up before 9 months after is no
Mhm.
longer picked up as an incipient lesion
Yeah.
is awesome. So we're seeing some great success there. But in the end, when we think about the play of artificial intelligence in dentistry and
Right.
why, right? Why is it such a big deal? Now, we have our when everything went digital and we have our practice management softwares with the mountains of data that we have in there, that data essentially is rendered useless unless we have, the power of artificial intelligence, similar to like ChatGPT. I know that
Yeah.
by now everyone's probably already dabbled or played with ChatGPT, but now to have AI be able to comb through the mountains of data to change how a practice functions so that now
Wow.
when we're getting together in the morning and we're planning out the day and having that AI insight available to say, okay, while the team's together, we're going to highlight the handful of patients that are coming in today that AI has already taken a look at their previous x-rays and are highlighting the things that nobody's talked to the patient about.
Right.
Like we didn't even chart it down in the patient notes or anything. Like these are the possible areas of undiagnosed opportunity, but then also where AI can now provide the information and the insurance verifications, to provide real-time insurance verification with the history per tooth to say, all right, now not only is this, the list of all the unscheduled treatment, the
Right.
undiagnosed treatment, but now what that patient is eligible for, it changes our approach on the daily and really helps the team hone in on the areas and the specific patients of, hey, let's get another set of x-rays. Let's maybe take a look at if this spot that the AI picked up, let's see if that's grown, if it's changed or progressed.
Yep.
And so that's where having AI compile and scan through all the data to give us additional insights really is now starting to increase the efficiency and how we work in the practice. Not only is it surfacing potential treatment that needs to be taken care of, but you
Right.
pair that with the patient's perspective, and now that increase in case acceptance, the overall outcome from A to Z, from when the patient comes in to when they leave, we are going to continue to see AI play a role in every step of that patient journey.
I I like to call it digital elves.
Yeah.
There's little elves in there that are just, working away, figuring things out for you, seeing trends. Um, that's one of the great things about your former employer, Dental Intelligence, is you can look at the numbers and you can find those KPIs, um, that, oh, this is going up or this is going down or this is, headed in the right direction. This is headed in the wrong direction. But being able to put that kind of data analytics into the actual treatment piece of it to say, hey, Mrs. Jones needs a crown on number 30. You've got 10 slots open next week and she has $1,200 left on her insurance for the year. I mean, knowing that before they walk in the door, as opposed to the normal way, you would do it was you would say, well, Mrs. Jones, you know, need to have this crown done on number 30. Will my insurance cover that? And my
Yeah.
response is always, or has always been before all of this, was that, well, let's go up front and talk to Becky, because one of our admin team, Becky, has been in dentistry her whole career. And I like to say she's forgotten more about insurance stuff than I'll ever even know.
Yeah.
And, but as opposed to, does my insurance cover that? Yes. And, your out of pocket would be X or, whatever. Um, that's just phenomenal power to put into everybody. You don't have that power in just one hand. You've got it
Yeah.
in everybody's hands.
Yeah. And as you talk about insurance and the process with insurance, it's interesting because something that I often hear is like, oh, well, the AI is being used by insurance companies to kind of push back and to reject claims.
Mhm.
And yeah, to an extent, that's kind of the path that things were going. And that's really where Ophir with Pearl, as he was putting this all together, his father's a
Right.
dentist. He wanted to make sure that we take the route of allowing these dentists to be on the same level playing field as
Yes.
insurance companies, to arm them with the same technologies and to help them so that now they're providing that evidence for claims, that the AI has ran through it. Now, what's exciting is where AI is going, because that the process right now, typically, if I were to ask you, like, you have a patient that comes in and they've got insurance, they need a crown. How long
Right.
does it take for your practice to get paid on that treatment from the day that they come in until the day that the funds are received from the insurance company? How long is that period?
It has been in the past, it was up to 6 weeks. Now with electronic claims, you can get that down some, you know, maybe, a week and a half, something like that, probably.
Yeah, because what's exciting and really kind of the mission that we're on is to get to the point where the AI has analyzed the X-ray.
Right.
And basically, you kind of have like that stamp of approval with an approval code that says, you know what, you no longer have to submit evidence for claims. This has been verified and viewed. And here's your approval code. And basically, you get the funds that when you complete the treatment. I mean, that's
And,
how it should be.
and it
And
is,
and so streamlining that whole process
yes.
to make it so that patient comes in, what's eligible, the treatment's done, and you get paid. Boom. Now, now that really changes the game.
Well, and one of the things that we've seen with that lately is I think it was a couple of weeks ago. It's been very recently. We always do a morning huddle. Um, and I've done a 180 on that. For the first part of my career, I was like, huddle schmuddle, what do I need that for? And then we started doing them. And yeah, anyway, so I'm a big one on that. But one of the admin team said, dental assistants and hygienists, make sure that uh, when you either in hygiene, when they're diagnosed with a crown, or when they're in treatment for the crown, please get me a pre-op bite wing and a pre-op PA, because we're submitting claims and claims are bouncing because the insurance companies want to see a bite wing and they want to see a PA. And we've got to provide those, or then we fight, fight, fight to get paid. And of course, fight, fight, fight means time, time, time,
Yes.
expense. And, knowing all of those things ahead of time, yes, we have that. Yes, don't forget that you need a PA on this. Don't forget you need a bite wing.
Yeah.
When the system can tell you, yeah, you've got all the data. It's been submitted already. The insurance system looked at it, and here's your code that says you get paid.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, and I think we talked about this, John, a while back, and I'm really excited about this because one of the issues that the practices were having was, they would send that PA or that bite
yeah,
wing, before it was treated. They send that in, but maybe the X-ray quality wasn't good enough, or maybe it didn't get the root tip, or maybe it was
you missed the
incorrect.
apex.
You
Yep,
missed
yep.
the apex. And so now the insurance company's like, no, the image isn't good enough. Well, it's too late now, right? It's too late. The
Yeah,
patient's
we crowned
patient's
it.
already been treated.
Right.
And so we needed to find a way to flag the quality of the x-ray at the time that the x-ray is taken while the patient's still in the chair. So that's something that I think I'm probably like too excited about. I'm nerding out about, but now, we are flagging the X-ray quality. So you get that FMX, and you're going to have a few flags on some of those X-rays that may say, you know what, this one has a cone cut, or
Yeah.
this one has too much overlap. So
Hmm.
that if you're submitting these, you might want to retake these X-rays now because the insurance companies probably won't be, it's not of quality that they'll be accepting these.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and it's a delay tactic, but, hey, you got to play the game,
Yeah.
and you can't, if they say we're only going to pay if we have a preoperative periapical radiograph that's of diagnostic quality, and you submit an x-ray that is not diagnostic quality, what are you going to do? You're, like you said, you're stuck. The patient's treated.
Yeah.
And so why not know ahead of time? Hey, you know, Susie's in room 2 taking a PA. She takes it, she misses the apex, and the system says, you're gonna have to take another one, Susie, because that one's not gonna fly.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I love that
Yeah.
because, or I mean, everybody forgets things. We're humans, and in busy practices, people are flying around. I've said for years to patients, hardest thing that I do is multitasking, because I step out, I'm in hygiene with a patient, and a patient asks me a question. And if I don't know the answer, my standard reply is, I don't know the answer, but I will find out that
Yeah.
answer and I'll get it to you. And then I step out of that room, and I've looked that patient right in the eye, and I've said, I will find out and I will get you the answer. And I meant it. And then I walk out, and I'm greeted by 2 hygienists and a dental assistant who say, I need you to do this. Could you look at this? And we're 10 minutes behind over here. And whatever I just promised the patient, gone, you
Yeah.
know. And so the same thing happens to the rest of the team. Somebody's like, oh yeah, I know I need to get a PA on that before we do that crown prep today. And then something happens and you're busy. And then somebody's like, hey, do you have any more, A4 composite? I've got a case next door and I got to find that. And it's gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the system just saying, hey, don't forget, because the other thing, like you were talking about with your eyes, computers never get tired, they never
Yep.
feel rushed, they're not flabbergasted or flustered or in fight or flight mode, they just go ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk.
Yeah.
And knowing and being told ahead of time, and then during, don't forget, you know
Yeah.
it's like a smart post-it note, which I
Yeah.
think is terrific.
John, I have a question for you.
Sure.
I'm curious with this. As the tech evangelist that you are, what are you most excited about having AI solve, or what you see coming that may change the dental space as it relates to artificial intelligence?
What I am really jazzed about right now is the ability to take all of this data, and I'm thinking about it from a clinical standpoint, Mike. But if I have a CBCT in my office, and I have an intraoral scanner in my office, and I have got, like a facial scanner that will actually allow take like a 3D image of the patient's face, being able to do a crown prep.
Mm,
And I do the scan, and then the system can take that scan and drop it into the cone beam.
yeah.
And I call it the constantly updating 3D patient, and not only this is what the patient looked like when we took the cone beam a year ago. It's like, this is what the patient now looks like today when you do the crown prep.
Mm,
And being able to put all that information together and then help you like merge and from the 3D printing side and the milling side, know how to design things based on all of that data.
yeah.
That's where we're headed clinically, and it can't get here fast enough for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the flip side is too just the data management. Like you said, we've got so much information on patients that you can't even begin to digest it.
Yeah.
And medical information doubles every 18 months. Medical information is like Moore's law for
Mm,
for science.
yep.
And having all of that at your fingertips. I mean, from the chat GPT thing, I was messing around a couple of weeks ago, and there was this study I was reading. It was in a journal, and I just created a PDF of the article and I loaded it into chat GPT, and I was like, summarize this for me.
Yeah.
And it was like bang, 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 and just being able to get things digestible to the point that my human mind can do this. Yeah, I read an article a while back that said in the Middle Ages, they estimated that like if you were a peasant in the 1400s, you got as much information in your life as one issue of the New York Times today.
Oh my gosh.
And having all of that information available, at least in a case of, what I envision too is like, I want this to be pretty. I want them, I've got these crowns. I'm going to do them in lithium disilicate because it's really pretty and I want it to be aesthetic. And if a system says, I'm looking at the occlusal wear patterns and this patient bruxes pretty good, and I'm not so sure that lithium disilicate would be the best option here.
Mm,
Once again, kind of a second opinion. Now I can do what I want,
yeah.
but it'd be nice to know that before I, cement 6 units and a year from now, two of them are broken.
Yeah.
And the patient wants to know why. So anyway, that's kind of where the whole merging of all the data and being able to tell you, like your expenses in this particular area are too high. You're
Hmm.
spending a lot of money on composite or whatever. You can look at the big numbers and say, people have broken them down and like, wages should be X% and
Yeah.
supplies should be X%, but it'd be great to have something weighed into it and say, you could save money here.
Yeah.
That would be
Absolutely.
awesome.
And also, eventually getting to the point where it's predicting all of your supplies that you need for the next month
Yeah.
for, what you're based upon your case acceptance rate, based upon what's undiagnosed and everything else. I think that to kind of sum it up, you know, I do still see clinicians that are hesitant to artificial intelligence, whether that's radiographic, whether that's, implementing AI into any other part of their workflow in the practice. But this, I think, very much applies not just to dental practices, but to business, any business out there, is
Right.
that individuals, clinicians, dental practices, professionals that are hesitant to implement and to adopt artificial intelligence will be passed by those who do.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm seeing people come in even here at Pearl that are able to crank out so much work, reports and processing data and everything because they're leveraging artificial intelligence.
Mhm.
And so it's like we no longer have the excuse of, yeah, I need like 2 days to do this report. No, you have to be leveraging artificial intelligence today in order just to stay up to pace with how things are going.
I agree with that totally. And I think that's one of the things that dentists as business owners need to be aware of is that I think maybe it's changing. I'm not really sure, but I know that for a while, if you said, artificial intelligence in dentistry, everybody jumped on bite wings. Yeah, there's systems that look at bite wings. And I think what they don't, or what some people may not realize is just this is getting put into everything. And it's like you said, if you know how to use it, you're going to be in trouble. I think the fear factor for people is that it's for some ways it's overhyped. Somebody thinks, oh, what's going to happen one day as I wake up and I don't even have to get out of bed. The computer's going to fry the bacon and the AI is going to do this. And it's not. I mean, it's a tool. And I look upon it as, when the spreadsheet, when the computerized spreadsheet was created, I mean, that changed the world because suddenly, the numbers could just bing, you could read it, you could process it so much easier. And this is just that next jump in the
Yeah.
tool. And I
Yeah.
think people see it as a person replacement, and it's not a human replacement. I mean, it's kind of like with dentistry, that I've had people ask me, well, don't you think the dental labs are all going to go out of business? And I'm like, no, I don't think so. I mean, there may be some contraction in the industry, and maybe some of the larger labs will, absorb some of the smaller ones. But when it comes to really like shade matching and doing things that look human to another human, a machine can't do that.
Mhm.
Machine doesn't have a soul. I don't know if you saw this, Mike. I thought it was really interesting. I read this article a while back about Toys R Us and Coke both decided to do AI generated television commercials.
Mm.
And they were like, what do we, I don't know if they said this, but it was like, we don't need any actors. We can just put the actors in. And they released the commercials, and the backlash was the people look creepy.
Yeah.
I don't know what you did, but these people don't look right. They don't move right or whatever. And I honestly think that's the soul part of it.
Yeah.
When somebody looks into somebody else's eyes, you can see something
Yep.
that isn't just ones and zeros.
Yeah.
So just
It's
use the
getting
tools.
advanced, it's getting better, but you're right. I mean, it is no replacement for that, for the soul, right? For the human element.
Yeah, there's something that makes us uniquely human. And I don't think there's an equation that'll ever figure that out.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's like if I was a sculptor. But then again, no, I just sorry, that's a weird Elton John reference. But if I was a sculptor and there was a better chisel or a better hammer, oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, why not?
Yeah.
And that's what these are, they're tools.
Yeah.
And I think some of the pushback is people just don't understand it's a tool, it's a hammer, it's a phone, whatever it is, it just
Yeah.
use it to make yourself better. You
Absolutely.
know?
Absolutely. Yeah. John, this has been amazing. In fact, I get talking with you and I forget that we're recording a podcast because
Yeah.
this feels like we're just at a restaurant, as
Yeah.
many times that we've had just chatting about technology. I
Yeah.
love it. I love it.
Flying an airplane over downtown Vancouver,
There you go.
seaplane over downtown Vancouver. No,
Yeah.
we are bumping against the magic 1 hour point, Mike.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for
Yeah.
this. I
Absolutely.
knew
Thank
we
you.
were going to get some great insights,
Yeah.
and plus it's just nothing better than talking to you. We always have so
I
much fun.
appreciate it.
So, yeah.
Yeah. This has been fun. This has been a
Okay, cool. Well, thank you, everybody. This is Buckner. He is the executive vice president for revenue. See, I've lost
Yep.
it already.
Yeah.
Okay.
EVP of revenue.
Executive vice president of revenue at Pearl. Um, Great artificial intelligence program. I use it in my practice. Highly recommend it. So thanks for watching. I'm Dr. John Fluke, Technology Evangelist. This is the Technology Evangelist podcast, sponsored by Medidenta Digital. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you next time. Bye.
Thanks, John.